Special thanks to my patrons for supporting my channel. This video does avoid spoilers for the main campaign. Frostpunk 2 recently came to us from 11-Bit Studios, creators of This War of Mine and, you can probably guess, Frostpunk. These are both games that I really liked, and when I heard that Frostpunk was getting a sequel, I was excited to see what they do with it. For those who don't know, Frostpunk is a city simulator that takes place in the late 1800s, where climate catastrophe has literally snowballed into a new ice age. As human civilization is wiped away, you lead a small group of survivors to a prepared generator, the last hope for the survival of mankind. And there you build a city to hopefully stand the test of time and the frost. Now, when you think of a city building simulator, you might think of SimCity or Cities Skylines. But Frostpunk is different because of one critical aspect. You are always about to die. The core of your city is the generator. The generator must be fed with coal. If the generator does not have coal, it shuts down and you die. You need to immediately collect wood and metal to build houses for the people. If you don't build houses, everybody freezes and you die. You need to secure a source of food, and if you don't get food, you starve and die. The gameplay loop is almost like a Rubik's Cube, where you get almost everything in line except that one corner. And if you're not careful, fixing the one outlying issue will upend everything else you've built. You have to be careful about where you place roads and buildings, making sure you keep everything within the reach of the generator and surrounding heat hubs. Every action comes with a trade-off, and as the weather grows colder, as a deadly whiteout threatens New London with annihilation, it's a constant battle against the elements. Frostpunk 2's campaign picks up 30 years after New London survived the whiteout. The captain, the player character in the first game, is dead. You now play instead as the steward, charged with shepherding the city into its next tottering steps. So, how does it compare? Well, it starts with a disclaimer saying, this game is really hard and you'll probably die. So the design philosophy is unchanged. The plot of Frostpunk 2 depends on the path you chose for New London in the prologue. In the first game, you could choose between relying on faith or order to bring the city together. Here, you make that choice to establish continuity with your experiences in the first game. But whichever route you choose, the overall arc of the plot remains the same. As the city grows and expands, the future is caught between two sides. The establishment New Londoners, who want to strengthen the city, and the Frostlanders, who form a countercultural faction and advocate for expanding outside the city. Will the steward maintain the status quo, or heed the winds of change? This is the core conflict of the story, but what each side looks like, their other values, the methods they use, those will be different depending on which route you take. The change I noticed right away is the scale of Frostpunk 2. Instead of a few hundred people, New London holds tens of thousands of people. Like I mentioned, in the first game you put down roads and buildings around the generator. Here, you instead build entire districts, and then customize them with one or two extra buildings to add specific functions. Road placement has been entirely automated and honestly doesn't impact gameplay at all. It's now merely a cosmetic function. Rather than finicking over the placement of heat hubs, they are placed automatically, and all you need to worry about is making sure there's enough fuel to keep them lit. To wit, the new installment doesn't simulate individual people or buildings, it works in aggregates instead. Right away, there are two concerns I had with this change. Would it detract from the storytelling capabilities of the first game, and would it simplify the gameplay too much and make it feel bare bones? Luckily, the team behind the game anticipated these challenges. Storytelling is handled through events and pop-ups where people voice their reactions to you. And while many of the city building elements have changed from the first game, they've not been simply stripped away. Instead, the districts comprise new challenges on their own. Placing similar districts close together can let them share heat, which is really helpful. On the other hand, placing the wrong kinds of districts together can cause pollution to seep into homes or food supplies. And while the new mechanics took some getting used to, I found it a quick transition and I ended up enjoying them. The scaling also affects the timeline of the game. Instead of minutes, Frostpunk 2's smallest measure of time is days. And while this does make sense with the rest of the game's zoomed out scale, and I don't have any real complaints about it, it does create the humorous fact that New London is capable of accurately predicting the weather 2 years into the future. They put all their skill points into meteorology, apparently. The Frostland, that is the general overworld, has been expanded as well, most notably with the ability to establish more than one city. You can transfer stockpiles and population between them or set up ongoing trades. Again, it feels like an expansion without becoming too overwhelming. Frostpunk 2 also expands the political side of the game. In the first Frostpunk, one of the aspects I wanted to see more of was the Book of Laws, where you could pass policies that would grant you certain benefits. You could choose the path of faith or the path of order, and you could decide how far to push your chosen tree. Would you cross the line into totalitarianism in exchange for basically unlocking easy mode? And while that was interesting, it did feel limited and constrained. Frostpunk 2 combines this with the technology research mechanics to create a unified idea tree. There are now 3 different axes that make up the city's zeitgeist, and each are caught between opposing ideals for the future of the city. Do you adapt to the frost or seek to repel it with technology? Do you use the traditions of the past as a bedrock to build a new society on, or sweep it all away to start over? Opposing zeitgeists will have different solutions to problems facing the city, and your people are very eager to fight for these beliefs. You now have to contend with various factions who will insist on their vision for the city's future. Their struggles take place in the newly erected council hall, where laws now have to be debated and approved before they can be implemented. Their struggles also take place in rallies and protests across the city. You can barter with these factions, negotiate with them, promote them, suppress them, and the game does a really good job at making it feel dynamic and alive. I thought I'd found a way to game the system, pouring funds onto a faction to keep them happy while I still moved away from their ethos. And then I got a pop-up of people grumbling that I was forking over so much money to them. These are called consequence arcs, and I really like them. The team could have simply blocked us from gaming the system, but instead they let us do it, and just have the people react accordingly. I like that. It shows strong foresight on behalf of the designers. I also like the way the laws are implemented. Sometimes laws will synergize with each other, leading to an entirely new effect. Some of the laws seem like good ideas, but have unintended side effects. You can decide whether to relax the law with loopholes or keep it stringent. Either route will have benefits and drawbacks, obviously. Some of these choices do kind of boil down to, should we be nice to people or should we be mean? But others will prove genuinely difficult to choose between. Though, there is one gripe I have with the choice here. See, if you lean far enough to one zeitgeist or another, you begin to unlock the opportunity to research radical technologies and laws, and each side of each spectrum has their own associated radical concept. Most of these make sense. Turning criminals into guinea pigs for experiments? Yeah, that's pretty messed up. I can see why that's controversial. Deciding to deport criminals to the Frostland? Yeah, that's pretty drastic. I can see why that is controversial. Pressuring workers to modify their bodies, constructing forced labor camps, going door to door to search for people storing food, that's all stuff I can see being viewed as radical. But the radical ideas for the progress zeitgeist are automated workforce factories. Now, in the real world, there are ongoing anxieties about automation and advanced technology upsetting existing job markets. So you might think that makes sense. But automatons already exist in Frostpunk. In the first game, you can end up automating every need in your city and it's not a problem. There's probably something about the tech being taken too far in some nebulous way, but it's very unclear. I just think it's a little weird that in a society where giant quadruped robots have been able to single-handedly operate factories for 30 years, asking my engineers to look into an automated workforce factory is on the same alarming moral level as inventing eugenics. What if my engineers put a gun to his head over it? We ought to have consigned that accursed research to the flames, raised the entire institute to cinders if need be. I will not permit this travesty to unfold once more. If they desire my brain to do their work, they will have to scrape it from the walls. Today I will atone for my sins, and they in due time will pay for theirs. Buddy, I asked you to build a Roomba. Anyways, outside of that, I do like this system. An extra dimension I didn't even mention yet is that even technologies will often have tweaked versions that will give you specialized buildings with unique benefits and drawbacks, as well as promoting their associated zeitgeist. It creates a lot of extra flavor that I really appreciate. This is precisely the kind of expansion I wanted to see from the first game's mechanics. All in all, I'd say Frostpunk 2 is an extremely satisfying sequel to the first game. The story continues in a very natural direction, and it's told with evocative details. The new mechanics feel transformative. They feel like they've really added on to what we had in the original Frostpunk. At the same time, it still keeps what makes this blossoming series so unique. That sense of desperation constantly hangs over you. You're always facing some shortfall, counting down to an impending crisis. If you're short on food, the effort to harvest more requires heat. Now you're running out of fuel. You better dig for more. Uh-oh, you don't have enough workers. You better rescue some survivors from the Frostland, but now you're short on food again, and housing, and goods, and you can only fix one of them. You get the picture. I promise I'll play video games to relax. Discussing the visuals, I really like a lot of the attention to detail you'll see here. You can see little vehicles clearing away the frost. You can zoom in and see people milling about buildings. During a storm, you can turn the camera and the direction of the snow actually appropriately changes on the screen, even on the lowest graphics settings. That's a nice touch. Also, I have to slip this in here, I really love the sound design, especially with the regular calls of the city intercom.
Secure additional layers. A cold season is imminent.
And I've been listening to the score by Piotr Museo at work. Nothing more inspiring for a day at the office than rising discords, hidden intentions, and of course my favorite track, Anger. Now, I had originally recorded a longer section in here where I was going to go into some negative aspects of the game, like how the UI was hard to use sometimes and that the game wasn't really optimized very well. You might have noticed that some of the gameplay footage was stuttering quite a bit. Frequent crashes marred my first campaign playthrough. However, in the time it took me to make this video, they released 2 updates. On top of adding in new consequence arcs and other things, they fixed the user interface, added in a lot of quality of life features, and greatly improved optimization. Obviously, it would have been preferable to have had the game optimized on release, but you know what? I'm glad that they are actually working on improving the game, rather than only focusing on the next thing to sell us. These updates actually changed my overall appraisal of the title. I was originally going to end this on a more mixed to positive note, but now I can say that I'm very firmly positive about this one. Frostpunk 2 has expanded the first game in a way that I find very satisfying, and the overall presentation of it is really compelling. I feel myself sucked into this world and its lore. There are flaws with its performance, but those issues are being actively addressed. On that note, I feel comfortable giving a definite recommendation for Frostpunk 2. Give it a shot, and see if you can ensure New London does not fall.